I'm Jeremy Hardy, and I'm here with fellow comic Imran Yusuf in the West Bank, part of the occupied Palestinian territory. We're here with British charity Medical Aid for Palestinians to see for ourselves how 50 years of Israeli military control affects the life and health of the Palestinians who live here. 100 years ago this year, British Foreign Minister Arthur Balfour decreed the UK's support for the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. As British control over the region ended in 1948, amid massacres and bloodshed, the State of Israel was declared. 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes at the hands of militias, spreading to camps in neighbouring countries as well as the West Bank and Gaza. Hundreds of Palestinian towns and villages were emptied and destroyed, heralding decades of displacement, conflict and persecution. Then, during the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza began. It continues to this day, making it the longest ongoing military occupation in the world.
Our journey starts here in Hebron, once the bustling commercial heart of Palestine, and now a city living at the sharp end of occupation. Our guides are Roy and Musa from the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem, who are going to explain the restrictions of movement imposed on Palestinians.
Yeah. This is the start of, Shuhada Street. Right. For Palestinians, no one like me are allowed to walk in this street.
Oh, so
I've been arrested.
You can't
walk when I just tried with my Jewish colleague, and we were in a car, and we were arrested for a whole night because we were caught in a car.
In order for you to be allowed, what would you need? Is it papers?
Only holders of Israeli cards are only allowed.
So this was a business of lots of shops.
I remember the old days when you have to push. It's very crowded here.
Yeah.
Now, and it's the main street which links the south and the north of the city.
So there are people that own these boarded up places. They
left, everyone left here. Many of them lost their business. You can walk and see with yourself, and I cannot walk with you because I have my green.
Okay. We'll see you when we come back.
I will.
For Palestinians like Musa, walking down Shahada Street is not allowed. It was once the bustling heart of the city, lined with Palestinian shops and businesses. But in February 1994, Baruch Goldstein, a far-right American-Israeli extremist, opened fire at the Ibrahimi Mosque, killing 29 Palestinian worshippers. In the following days, protests and riots broke out on Shahada Street, so the Israeli military closed the street to all Palestinians.
They introduced restriction on movement of Palestinians, and I said there are streets that are blocked to Palestinians, and there are also streets that are, one side of them is open to Palestinians and the other side is open just to the settlers.
After the occupation began in 1967, Israel has expanded its civil and military control over the majority of the West Bank, with Israeli settlers moving in and colonizing the land. And Hebron is perhaps the starkest example.
In the old part of Hebron, there are 800 settlers, and they are guarded by roughly the same number of soldiers. What it created here is essentially an impossible situation for the Palestinian residents, tens of thousands of Palestinians that cannot move, cannot trade freely, cannot go from place to place. So essentially what you see here now is a ghost town. In order to protect the order and to protect the settlers, there needs to be a separation of the two populations, that they cannot keep the security of the settlers if the Palestinians are present. So they created this reality, and it's, of course, it serves the settlers, but it's not very good for the Palestinians.
And presumably the settlers would have an agenda, or some of the settlers would have an agenda of wanting the Palestinians to leave so that this becomes Greater Israel.
Yeah, I think, it serves their agenda, and they're going from house to house to house to house, and they know that it will have a ripple effect. And essentially they are the ones that dictate the reality here. It's important to say that this is done by the Israeli government. Nobody can act by themselves.
The Israeli government offers financial incentives to Israelis willing to move into settlements within the Palestinian territories. Hardline settlers are also frequently responsible for violence against Palestinians. The UN has reported that the number of these attacks has quadrupled in the last 10 years, including attacks on families and children and the destruction of livelihoods such as olive groves.
If small Jewish communities of settlers will enter a very densely populated Palestinian area, eventually the result will be what we see here.
Are there conditions like this in other parts of the West Bank, or is this the most extreme example?
I think Hebron is a microcosm where you see where the two populations clashed. Hebron was kind of like leading the way or for the wider restrictions of movement all over the West Bank and Gaza.
The settlements and their military security have carved deep divides across the land, making everyday life for Palestinians insufferable. On our way out of Hebron, we witnessed the claustrophobic reality for Palestinians living in such close proximity to the settlers.
So the reason for this, they've started putting this stuff up, is because the settlers chucking stuff down.
Okay. Oh, right.
So it's settlers moving into properties above, dropping liquids, including alcohol, because they know it's upsetting to Muslims. Yeah. Chucking eggs, chucking rocks down.
These are some of the
it's general down. Sort of rocks,
bits of brick, rubbish.
So that's some sort of military installation up there. Watchtower. There's a big light on there.
That doesn't look nice.
No.
Whatever that is.
There's a big rock there.
Whatever you believe, just if you've got the mentality that you want to chuck your garbage at people who are, below you, and you think that's acceptable or you think that's godly, it's extremely pathetic.
Well, they want them to leave. I mean, they want Palestinians to leave. They want the businesses to close. They want people to stop coming here to shop. They want the economy to collapse, and then take all of it. Take all of the land, basically. There's been no crop failure here. There's been no natural disaster. People have just been crushed by being occupied. By deliberate government policy in the State of Israel of moving people into the West Bank, into land that it occupies illegally, and then sending an army to protect them from the locals who don't want to be colonised, but not to protect the colonised people from the attacks that the settlers make on them. And so the settlers are an armed occupying force, effectively. They're not, plucky pioneers making the place better. They're turning it into a crap hole.
The presence of settlers in Hebron isn't a standalone case. Settlement building has been eroding the Palestinian landscape since the occupation began, accelerating rapidly over the last 2 decades. We're on our way to the town of Silwad to meet Haji Mariam, an 83-year-old farmer whose land was confiscated 20 years ago for the building of a new settlement outpost, Amona.
What's different since the occupation for you?
قبل ما يحتلوها واحنا نوكل منها وعايشين من وراها. نزرعها قمح ونزرعها شعير ونزرعها عدس ونزرع ترسنة ونزرع كل شيء فيها. وبعدين السنة الثانية نزرع بندورة ونزرع خيار ونزرع بطيخ ونزرع فكوس ونزرع بامية وكل شيء. نضل طول السنة نوكل من ثمرها يعني. لا بكى في دكاكين نشتري ولا بكى في محلات فيه الخضرة، بكى الواحد يوكل من رزقه يعني. بس بكوا أهلي يبكوا يحصدوا وأنا أجيب لهن مية وأجيب لهن الأكل وأمشي وراهن هيك، بكيتش أعرف أحصد الساعة أنا.
As her land backed onto the settlement, the Israeli military created a no-go zone preventing her from accessing it.
أول إشي حطوا عمود، بعدين حطوا شارع، وبعدين شفنا هالبيوت. وبعدين شفنا هالشجر لا يعلمونا ولا هذي يعني بالكوة. أرضنا يا جماعة الخير بتعز علينا، بدنا أرضنا إحنا.
Haji Mariam isn't alone. Many Palestinian farmers from Silwad have had their land confiscated, come under attack from settlers, or had their olive trees burned. So where was your land, or where is your land, if you like?
هذه أرضي، كل هذه اللي مواجهتنا أرضي، الدو البيوت والشجر والعمدان هذا كل أرضي، بطلنا نستجروا عليها، هي إحنا بنبحر عليهم نتحسر، يعني شيف بتحسر عليها لما يبحر هي بالله كله.
With the military and settlers in control, for Palestinians to access their land would mean risking injury or even death, as the local mayor explains.
They kill 2 women because they want to approach to their area, to plant their area.
And the farmers were shot by the army.
Yes.
What do you hope for the future?
Yes, of course. I have very good hope. Because this is our land, this is our future. Tell us that we should liberate all Palestine. Believe me. Inshallah, in 5 years, between 5 years, 10 years, we should return our Palestine to Palestinian people. Without hope, how you live? If I haven't hope, how I live? I should have hope, very big hope for the future.
So the simple situation is here, this land has been in people's families for generations. They're farmers who farm this land, it's been their livelihood. One day settlers turn up, say, we're going to live here now, it's not your land anymore. The army turns up to guard the settlers and make sure that you can't go anywhere near your own land. If you walk on there and try and farm it again, you'll be shot. The Israeli High Court says that's illegal. The government says, yeah, what are you going to do about it?
They're so defiant that they'll return one day, even though all the evidence points to the fact that, you know, it's that there's the country Israel will never allow to do that, and it's bullying.
The building of settlements in an occupied territory is illegal, but international condemnation, including the passing of a UN Security Council resolution at the end of 2016, has done nothing to deter their expansion. Thousands of new settlement homes were announced in the West Bank and East Jerusalem in just the first few months of 2017. In total, more than 800,000 Israeli settlers now live on occupied Palestinian land. And as the colonization of Palestinian territory expands, so will the presence of the Israeli army and their hand on Palestinian life, from nightly raids and arrests to the accelerating demolition of Palestinian homes. The statistics are staggering. Since the occupation in 1967, over 800,000 Palestinians have been detained by the Israeli army, as much as 40% of the entire male population, and 8,000 of those arrested since the year 2000 have been children. Checkpoints and roadblocks staffed by soldiers crisscross the landscape, a constant barrier to free movement. Nowhere is this grinding reality more obvious than standing in the shadow of Israel's separation wall. It snakes across over 400 kilometers of the West Bank landscape, in many places way past the UN-approved boundary or green line into Palestinian territory, and often bisecting communities and even families.
That blows my mind that you've got, you know, your house can be on one side and then there's a wall and then your land or your family and people you know on the other side. And in order to get through the other side, you're going to have to go through some laborious checkpoint. So what do you think that's going to breed? If that happened to any one of us, if we were told that we couldn't, cross one side of our town to the other side to visit our friends without going through some kind of checkpoint to prove that we weren't a threat, what would that breed in a human being? It's not about, their faith or in politics. To any human being, you take away anybody's just right to freedom of movement, especially like that, it's going to breed an animosity.
But the occupation doesn't only affect movement and livelihoods, it can also have a direct impact on Palestinians' health. Today we're following a MAP-funded mobile health unit into the Jordan Valley, where they serve Bedouin communities living in some of the harshest conditions in the occupied Palestinian territory.
Well, here we are, amongst one of the many Bedouin communities, and wow.
There are over 27,000 Bedouin Palestinians in the West Bank. Most are refugees who fled or were forced from their lands in the Negev desert during the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. Many were displaced here to the Jordan Valley in Area C, the 60% of the West Bank in which Israel maintains full civil and military control. To find out more about the MAP-supported mobile unit serving these communities, we met the clinic's coordinator, Sumaya Nimmer.
احنا هنا بنزور تجمعات لحتى نقدم عدة خدمات. أول شيء خدمة علاجية سنة لعمر 5 سنين. طبعا المتابعة للأطفال بتكون إنه أخذ الوزن وأخذ الطول ومحيط الرأس. بنتابع الحوامل اللي هي بأخذ الضغط وأخذ الوزن لإلها وبنفحص السكري كمان للحوامل.
What are the particular problems of the Bedouin in this area?
لأنها هي تجمعات سي ممنوع البنى فيها. ممنوع إنه نخدم الخدمات. الخدمات ما في عندهم خدمات صفر. عشان هيك إحنا بنوصلهم في الخدمات العلاجية.
So this is Zone C under civil and military Israeli control. But do the Israelis provide anything for the Bedouin?
هون الخدمات صفر. مانعينهم من البنى. وهدوا هون 4 بيوت وفي كمان كل الموجودين هنا معهم اختارات في الهدم. الأطفال ما بنوش، حاولوا كمان في بنوا هنا روضة لكن تم هدمها. هنا ما بدهم إنهم يأسسوا، ما بدهم تأسيس لإلهم، ما بدهم أي خدمات لحتى يعني هون عندنا هون مستعمرة موجودة ما فيها ساكن إلا بس مستوطن واحد، وبرضه كمان في هون مستعمرة بس ساكن فيها فقط مستوطن، مقدمين لكل الخدمات لكن هون ممنوع إنهم يوصلهم أي خدمات.
So the settlement on the hill that we can see is one family provided with all the services, clean water. There's no water here?
Yeah.
No water. Does this create health problems because there's lack of clean water here?
احنا هاي المشكلة لما بتصير في شتاء، لما بتنزل عندنا بصير هون في شتاء، فبتنزل المي من على الجبل فبتنزل في الكناي، هم بيسحبوا منها المي بيشربوا. هاي المي طبعا مش نظيفة. احنا لما بنيجي نزورهم بنلاقي في عندنا عدة حالات، عندنا اسهالات، في عندنا كمان عندنا الأميبيا انتشرت كثير هون، في ما زال عندنا كم حالة فيها جرثومة.
The Israeli government has created a coercive environment which leaves these people at risk of being forced off their land and into Israeli-planned townships against the rights and traditions of the Bedouin people. The mobile clinic is a lifeline to this community. It enables them to stay on this land and fight for their culture and dignity.
مجرد احنا اجيتنا عليهم هي دعم معنوي لهم.
الدعم المعنوي إلنا. يعني احنا لما بيجوا علينا بنحسهم كأنهم منا يعني.
And it means that they feel able to stay.
احنا بنعزز وجودهم هون، إن نقدم لهم هذه الخدمة.
شوفوا هي حامل والولد وهي كبر وهي براعي المدرسة.
You have one child? This is Mayasa, and she has kindly agreed to show us her home and to tell us more about life here. Her family have lived in this land for about 30 years after being displaced from their ancestral land in the Negev desert, now in Israel.
كنت ساكنة بيت خيش، يعني بيت عربي يعني بعمود خربوش. قعدنا فيه 4 سنين بعدين كبرناها.
Mayasa's home has repeatedly been threatened with demolition.
Is your home under threat of being demolished at any moment?
Yes. خلص إذا إجا قال لك بدي أهده بهده. بعدين لما بسترح الغنم بيقول لك ممنوع تروح غادي، ممنوع تقطع الشارع، إن قطعت الشارع باخذهن منك بصدرهن.
You not being able to walk outside, is that the law or is that just a settler threatening you?
تهديد منه هو.
Communities like this have few legal protections and receive virtually no services or support.
يعني كهرباء فيش، مية فيش، يعني أولادنا بالشوب بتلاقيهم شوب كثير، بقدرش فيش يعني مجال إنك بتجيب كهرباء ولا مزقان ولا إيش، يعني بالشوب هاي حامية وفي البرد باردة.
And no medical care is provided by the Israelis.
فيش إلا هاي العيادة هاي اللي بتيجي علينا إحنا.
Where does your water come from now, here?
من العوجة. تنكات هاي.
So it comes in tanks on trucks.
وقت الصيف بدنا 2 باليوم.
Okay.
بعدين يعني لو حاولنا بناخذ مية يعني زي في نفاسة بناخذ مية منها، بيجي التنظيم مسك التراكتور والتانك بحمله وباخده.
الإسرائيلي.
بدك 10,000 15,000 شيكل حتى بترجعه. يعني إحنا العيشة راضيين فيها، يعني مش عايشين هون ويعني بس لو في كهرباء ومية إحنا مبسوطين على الآخر يعني ومواصلات.
Wow, it's just you're not really asking for much, are you? You just want to live and have access to the same, like, you know, to just have water and have access to healthcare. It's heartbreaking. You know, we're going to walk away from this. I'm going to go home to where I live, where things work a lot better. We might have problems, but it's basic human rights. They're human beings. They deserve to have access to proper healthcare. And this is not, no, this can't continue. It can't just be this van coming once a month for the rest of their lives. The government and the infrastructure needs to work in helping, uplifting these people, because at the moment they're crushing them. It's absolutely crushing them. It's not just the Bedouin for whom restrictions on movement and medical services are part of daily life. While most Palestinians have access to basic medical support, it's those who need critical or specialist care who are facing the greatest obstacles. This is Kalandia Checkpoint. It's the main gateway to East Jerusalem from the West Bank. East Jerusalem was illegally annexed by Israel and was later cut off from the rest of the West Bank with an imposing 8-meter high wall. But several of Palestine's main hospitals are in East Jerusalem, meaning patients face life-threatening delays to reach them. To find out more, we're meeting up with paramedic Mohammed Fitiani.
This checkpoint is a humanity crisis. We have a humanitarian crisis or disaster here. So we have difficulties to
So if someone
cross.
comes in an ambulance to this checkpoint, what happens then?
Before he comes, he should to get a permission from the district coordination office. It takes a lot of times, maybe it takes hours, and sometimes it's refused for a security reason, we don't know. After we get a permission, we do our process to transfer the patient from Palestinian side to the occupied by. Our ambulance in Jerusalem is coming to the checkpoints. There are 2 ambulances parked to to others, and we are transferred patient from a Palestinian ambulance to our ambulance, and we are going to the Jerusalem. This sometimes takes, for example, minutes, and sometimes it takes hours. And sometimes there's patients with the critical cases, urgent cases, and a mechanical ventilator, need oxygen, need immediate medical intervention. And they say, the soldier, I don't have a permission to cross the border. And we told them, you have a permission, his case is critical, may die at the checkpoint, and the soldier answers, it's okay to die. This is not our problem.
So people have died here waiting?
Yeah, sometimes yes.
Ambulance crews not only face delays, but are also themselves often harassed or even shot at as they attempt to offer first aid to injured Palestinians. And it's not only emergency cases that struggle with the checkpoint. Many specialist treatments, such as radiotherapy or heart surgery, are only available in East Jerusalem. Patients must apply to the Israeli government for a permit to cross, a process fraught with delays which can lead to missed appointments. Dr. Rafiq Husseini, director of the Al-Maqasid Hospital in East Jerusalem, explains the impact of these restrictions.
Maqasid receives a lot of patients from the West Bank and also from Gaza. It is very difficult for people to cross the checkpoints, especially the arid checkpoints from Gaza. We have patients who come, young children, but the mother is not allowed to come with them. And therefore, it is the grandmother or the grandfather even sometimes who come with them, which creates a big problem. The child needs their mother to be with them. But because the mother is under an age that the Israelis think could be a security threat to them, they don't allow them to come.
But some patients don't even have a grandparent with them. This baby was born prematurely. His twin sister didn't survive, and his mother had to return to Gaza soon after giving birth. He's now stranded here, unable to be reunited with his family.
This patient is almost in 5 months in the hospital. He doesn't need to have the intensive care now. We want to discharge him to another hospital, but they require the presence of any of his family. We are waiting for the permit for the mother or someone in the recovery of this patient. The presence of the mother is very important for the feeding and for care and for education, and he just needs somebody to play with him and his mother to care for him. When we have 5 patients or 6 patients just waiting in the NICU for somebody to come and get them, that means that these beds are occupied and we cannot accept a new patient. And this interferes with our mission to help more and more people.
Israel's permit regime and the restrictions on the movement of patients are stripping the dignity and endangering the health of thousands. This has to stop. We leave the last word to Dr. Mahmoud Abu Aita, a MAP-supported resident at the hospital from Gaza.
The message that I have for all the human beings and for the Israelis themselves, we have all together to stop the occupation. I think nobody in the world would like to see people in Gaza or in Palestine suffering this way. And I think they have to say it very loudly, stop all of this.
The conditions we've witnessed are not caused by some natural disaster. This is a man-made situation, and that means the solution has to be man-made too. We've met both Palestinians and Israelis working together to highlight injustice and finally bring half a century of occupation to an end. But we need to play our part. Palestinians demand their rights to health and dignity, and in 2017, international support is vital. We have a duty to support their call and ensure it is heard by our government in the UK and by people around the world. A better future is possible here, but it requires all of us to play our part.